What's good? It's Woog. This is my list of best albums of 2021. Number 40, H.E.R, Back of My Mind. The strong and long follow-up to her Grammy Award-nominated I Used to Know Her compilation in 2019. She actually has two extremely successful projects that were listed as compilations before this official debut album, Back of My Mind. And I'm actually surprised that although this Back of My Mind album is Grammy nominated, that it hasn't made many of the publications' critical best albums of 2021 lists. It's largely been absent. Number 39, Drake, Certified Lover Boy. Not his best album, but I feel like there are a few songs that are undeniably interesting, and his lyrics, when he gets into that super lyrical drizzy mode, they're just about as sharp and as clever as they've ever been. Number 38, Yola, Stand For Myself. Not sure yet if I prefer this album overall to her Walk Through Fire album in 2019. I don't think there is one song better than that 2019 album opener, Far Away Look. That song is phenomenal. But I think that this new Stand For Myself album might be more solid beginning to end. This, like her last album, is produced by the Black Keys' Dan Auerbach, and it's on Auerbach's Easy Eye Sound record label. They actually put out a lot of quality music that kind of flies under the radar to mainstream music fans. Number 37, Faye Webster, I Know I'm Funny, haha. Clever, witty, vulnerable, soft voice. This is one of those new, cool 2020s indie style artists and albums. If you're into this style of indie, you'll dig it. Number 36, Shannon Lay with Geist. This might be Shannon Lay's best album yet. This is her fifth album in only like 6 years. Now, it's funny. She comes from a punk rock band called Feels. I was managing warehouse spaces in South LA, and we actually were hosting a rock promoted event, and one of the couple bands that were performing that night was Feels. That's Lana Geronimo, Shannon Lay. It's a 4-member punk rock band, Feels. They actually just disbanded last year, but we were able to not only shoot the live performance of Feels as they were performing at our warehouses, but we even interviewed them in a side room where we had like this basket of props. It was like a huge triple warehouse space that I was managing, and yeah, this box had a bunch of props and a bunch of like Groucho Marx mustaches and just a bunch of accessories and stuff. So they were just kind of experimenting and putting different stuff on, and it was a really fun interview. And this is when they were really just first coming together as Feels. And Lana Geronimo was the lead singer of Feels. Shannon Lay, she would be like the other vocalist and guitarist, and she was always shredding. So the fact that Shannon's coming from this punk rock band and has transitioned into this solo career of very folky, melodic, singer-songwriter style of music, I couldn't be prouder just as an observer of her career and this career arc trajectory. It's been pretty interesting. When she first started performing more shows as a solo artist, we actually shot her at Zebulon. So we not only shot several of her band Feels' performances, but we also caught a couple solo Shannon performances as well. But yeah, big fan of Shannon Lay. She gets number 36 with Geist. Number 35, Richard Dawson and Circle with Henkai. The super idiosyncratic and interesting folkish, progressive folkish, folk artist Richard Dawson teams up with Circle, an experimental rock band from Finland, I believe. Yeah, it's a Finnish rock band for this new album, Henkai. Now, Richard Dawson's last two critically acclaimed albums, Peasant and 2020, are a very tough act to follow. But I've got to say, I wasn't disappointed at all with Henkai. Number 34, Katy Kirby, Cool Dry Place. This is a quaint, pleasant sounding indie folk album with a couple pretty good songs and then a couple really nice songs. Overall, an enjoyable listen. Katy Kirby actually opened for Waxahachie when I went to see her show at LA's First Congregational Church in like near downtown Los Angeles earlier this year, closer to MacArthur Park if you're familiar. But yeah, Cool Dry Place by Katy Kirby, that was a nice album. Number 33, Rhiannon Giddens, They're Calling Me Home. Musical savant Rhiannon Giddens, banjo and fiddle queen. delivers big on this very spiritual sounding They're Calling Me Home album. This kind of transports you to an old American landscape that really finds beauty in its early and continued struggles. This album it really encapsulates the human plight. Beautiful work by Giddens. Number 32, Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, Carnage. This is Nick Cave being the dramatic existentialist. This album is actually a departure from his recent Skeleton Key and Ghost Teen albums, which reflected his personal tragedy in the death of his son. Those were two heart-wrenching and powerful projects. This one, Carnage, feels a little more bleak and grim, but this one, like those, just reels you into the realm of Nick Cave, like a world that only he could curate and narrate. Such an interesting artist. I get that this isn't for everybody, but there's something very deep and authentic about what he's done over the past, 40 years? Number 31, Sloppy Jane with Madison. She was a bit of a shock artist when I'd first seen her a few years ago, back in 2016, 2017. We shot a couple of her performances, and, she was known to strip totally naked during her live performances. She would, be spitting green goo out of her mouth during the performance. I mean, it was pretty shocking. And 2 albums later, on Madison, she delivers, this very haunting, theatrical, dark, interesting, beautiful album. Madison was very impressive. Not your typical singer-songwriter Baroque pop type of album, but yeah, I like it a lot. Number 30, and I'm still not quite sure how to pronounce this, but McDerviscan for Alting. This won't be for everyone, but if you like your post-punk turned up with urgent vocals and pop-punkish musical explosions and pop sensibility, splashy choruses, give this one a try. Number 29, Lucy Dacus with Home Video. 1/3 of Boy Genius, the other 2 being Phoebe Bridgers, who had an extremely successful breakout year in 2020, and Julian Baker. Lucy Dacus delivers a very personal and intimate album of 2020s style indie soft rock singer-songwriter. Definitely a style that's grown in popularity in recent years. Lucy Dacus has emerged as one of the key players of that subgenre. Number 28, St. Vincent with Daddy's Home. This one is part Baroque pop, but not as abstract as her early albums like Actor and Strange Mercy. This one is more indie pop and dream poppy, even psych rock, especially when you look at the song like Living in the Dream, which has climatic musical high points rivaling that of Pink Floyd or The Girls' Father, Son, Holy Ghost album from 2011. This album further showcases St. Vincent's versatility. Number 27, Wolf Alice with Blue Weekend. The alt-rock, indie rock, and even shoegazy band Wolf Alice delivers some rock smashes here with Blue Weekend. This is their 3rd album, a little less lo-fi than their first 2, but the production and songwriting here are pretty damn awesome. By the time I got to the end of track 4, Smile, I was all in. Number 26, Courtney Barnett, Things Take Time, Take Time. One of the most revered and critically acclaimed indie rock singer-songwriters of the past, I'd say, 8 years, Courtney Barnett delivers a pretty good album. It hasn't been as widely acclaimed as her previous 2 albums, the first of which, Sometimes I Sit and Think and Sometimes I Just Sit, was recognized as one of the top 2 or 3 critically acclaimed albums of that year. But yeah, I like Things Take Time, Take Time. Number 25, Arlo Parks, Collapse in Sunbeams. This is a pretty smooth, indie soft rock listening. A few really good catchy standouts like Too Good, Black Dog, Just Go, and Portra 400 elevated the album. While some of the other songs seemed a little less memorable, not bad, just more forgettable. Overall though, a pleasant listen with those few highlights. Number 24, Matthew E. White, K-Bay. One of the more underrated singer-songwriters and producers in the indie and indie alternative spaces, he produced Natalie Prass's 2015 self-titled album. I remember really liking his 2015 album, Fresh Blood, as well. He's had a couple collab albums since, but this 2021 album, K-Bay, is his first solo album since that 2015 Fresh Blood. and I thought he delivered big with some really nice songs and great production. He kind of flies under the radar, so I encourage y'all to give his music a listen. Number 23, Lana Del Rey, Chemtrails Over the Country Club. One of the 2 albums released by Lana this year, Chemtrails was the first, which followed up her critically acknowledged album of the year, Norman effing Rockwell. Chemtrails to me was a much more consistently solid listen than its later 2021 follow-up Blue Banisters. The opener, White Dress, is a good example of how Lana has pretty much expanded her musical and vocal stylings. While not as powerful and good front to back as Norman effing Rockwell, very few recent albums are. But Chemtrails, I believe, deserves recognition, and if it weren't for Lana's strong overall discography, which is pretty full of tough acts to follow, Chemtrails I think would be a little more celebrated. Number 22, Strand of Oaks, In Heaven. A very emotionally engaging album with some pretty powerful moments songwriting-wise. Strand of Oaks is a pretty underrated folk rock artist from Indiana, residing though in Austin, Texas. I remember really liking his 2014 album, H.E.R. And here we are 3 albums and 7 years later, and I thought that he really came with a quality album in Heaven. Very touching stuff. Number 21, Spirit of the Beehive, Entertainment, Death. Spirit of the Beehive, for those who don't know, was the name of a very popular Spanish film from 1973 that's set in the year 1940, just after Franco defeated the Republican forces. But yeah, Spirit of the Beehive, the band, is a very psychedelic, experimental, and pretty damn interesting band from Philadelphia who now have 4 albums, with their latest 2 being much more exposed and acclaimed than their first 2. It's weird. I can't even name you the songs that stand out on this album because the album feels more like a roller coaster ride and a soundscape than it does a collection of actual songs. It's a fascinating trip, and I'm still not totally sure, or should I say I'm less sure about this album's placement on this list than I am many of the others, because of how difficult it's been to wrap my head around whether the individual songs here are actually good or not. But they are damn interesting. Entertainment, Death, Spirit of the Beehive, number 21. And before we get into the second half of this list, I want to urge you, or at least ask y'all, to like the video, and if you're into this music talk, please subscribe to the channel. Here we go with the second half of the list. Number 20, Porter Robinson, Nurture. This album feels pretty good. If you need like a pick-me-up on any given morning, not like a Bobby McFerrin, don't worry, be happy type of pick-me-up, but one that's able to convey hope and positivity without any words, or at least with minimal words, just more a vibe, I guess. This artist's music is kind of electronic, housey, mixed with indie pop. It's a really unique thing, but I found myself really digging this album. This is only his second album, by the way. The first was back in 2014. Number 19, Baldy James and the Alchemist with Bo Jackson. Baldy James is quickly becoming many people's favorite rapper, MC. He's got that sedated delivery like an Earl Sweatshirt or the late great MF Doom. The lyrics are so damn sharp here. There's a lot of cleverness, humor, dark biographical tales, inspirational personal reflections, all with the backdrop of the extremely prolific and legendary producer Alchemist, who's been involved in a lot of these critically acclaimed rapper-producer partnerships like Alfredo with Freddie Gibbs from last year. This Baldy James Alchemist tandem works, and Bo Jackson is a pretty smooth listen from beginning to end. Very compelling beats and rhymes. Baldy James, again, is becoming a new favorite rapper to many. Number 18, Kanye West with Donda. The most complicated, funny, frustrating, and dramatic album release that I can recall in recent memory. It resulted in a very long album that could have probably benefited from being a little trimmed down, but there are really several highlights here, and this album's grown on me even more since its initial release. This might be Kanye's best overall album since Yeezus, which was pretty much at the top of most people's 2013 albums of the year. But yeah, Donda's Moon and Jesus Lord are 2 of the emotional high points for me. I'm still enthralled by the beauty of Moon featuring Kid Cudi. But yeah, Donda is a very long but a pretty damn good album. Number 17, The Weather Station with Ignorance. This is a concept album, a very environmentally conscious album about climate change. I first gotten into The Weather Station with their Loyalty album from 2015, 2 albums ago. On that album, they were much more acoustic folk, whereas here, it's more a fully fleshed out version of folk pop, baroque pop style of music, and the songs are really trying to drive a message. I feel like she really pulled it off with flying colors while maintaining a captivating and pleasant sound. Number 16, Olivia Rodrigo with Sour. This one surprised me. Usually when something feels like a new viral trend, I question its prospects for long-term viability. Like, does she have the goods to last, or will she be mostly known as the driver's license girl? But dude, Olivia Rodrigo, as an artist, seems to really have a strong identity for being so young. I gave this album 2 songs to really reel me in, and that would determine whether I was gonna stick around and listen to the rest. And that 1-2 punch was so versatile, dynamic, smart, and powerful that, yes, I stuck around. This is a very good debut album. I'm really curious to see how her artistry develops, but damn, that track too, Traitor, whoo! Number 15, Dori Freeman with 10,000 Roses. One of the best country artists that country music fans don't even know about. My goodness, how is the public still sleeping on Dori Freeman? I mean, publications like American Songwriter are up on her. My brother Billy put me up on her. But seriously, she's totally bringing it in terms of songwriting, vocal ability, authenticity. Yeah, please give Dori Freeman at least a listen if you haven't. Her latest album, 10,000 Roses, is another example of why. Number 14, Madu Maktar, Afrique Victime. So, guitarist Madu Sullivan, better known as Madu Maktar, delivers on this 5th album. 4 albums within the past 6 years, actually. I like that I've been seeing a lot of artists from, Nigeria, Mali. Madu Maktar is from Niger. I've seen some emerging and established artists from Africa covered through like NPR and not only off the beaten path publications, but also in certain other larger publications like Pitchfork. But unlike, say, banjo-playing duos like Amadou and Miriam from Mali, Madu Maktar is bringing this like psych rock-ish sound that just adds to his grooves. And this album, Afrique Victime, starts off so damn strong. So even if you're just like in a hazy stupor by the second half of the album, the early part hits so damn hard that the second half could just kind of serve as a psychedelic blues come down. Give it a listen. Number 13, Turnstile with Glow On. Probably the hottest rock and roll, punk rock, post-punk name to come out of 2021. Not that Glow On is their debut album, but they've kind of hit a stride that Idols hit about 2 or 3 years ago, from which they followed up nicely over the past 2 albums within a year and a half, although the new Idols didn't make this list. Saying all that to say that Turnstile, while different in their own way, is like the new garage rock, hardcore punk band that you've got to hear this year. They've temporarily assumed the top of this Cloud Nothings, Idols, Squid, Mets, Fontaines DC, Dogleg, Parquet Courts pile. I don't know. Black Midi's gotta be up there, but that's another discussion. You gotta check out this new Turnstile. Pretty riveting stuff. Number 12, Tyler the Creator, Call Me If You Get Lost. He's really got a more adultish confidence going, doesn't he? I mean, Tyler's really in his bag, fully. For someone who used to be counterculture as hell and was the leading voice of the rowdy and rebellious youth, the alternative everything, odd future frontman, to see him transitioning into this Flower Boy and then Igor and now Call Me If You Get Lost period of his career, I've got to say, I did not think that Tyler would be on this level of firepower mode this far into his career. It's not only the rhymes, it's like the overall artistry. We're talking production, concepts, execution, everything. But Call Me If You Get Lost is pretty damn different from Igor and Flower Boy. But it really just caps off this awesome recent 3-album run for Tyler. Number 11, Jasmine Sullivan with Heaux. She keeps this one short and sweet. This album is hella sexual, it's vulnerable, it's challenging, it's warm, it's funny. Jazmine hits it from all angles, pun intended. This is a brilliant and compact R&B album, hardly a weak track on here. She started her career with like a ton of promise and exposure early, like we're talking 2008. Her third album in 2015, Reality Show, was critically praised. And now this one has been landing at the tops or near the tops on a lot of lists. She's got all the tools, she's delivering the music, and Heaux is showing that her releasing great projects is not a fluke. Keep in mind, there was a 5-year gap between her second and third album in a young career, and then a 6-year gap between the third album and this fourth album. So her delivering like this on Heaux, shoot, statement made. Number 10, Nas with King's Disease 2. Shoot, the Queensbridge legend, Nas, who some believe is the greatest to ever do it. Then there are many that wouldn't go that far, but would say that he's like top 5. And even those who have been a little cooler on the 27-year catalog would probably still rank him in their top 10 or like 15 through 20 if they really aren't into him. He has one of the greatest beginnings to a career in rap history with Illmatic. Then he has one of the best rap songs of all time on his second album. It was written with the song If I Ruled the World with Lauryn Hill. And he's been very prolific and undoubtedly consistent since then. But his last 2 albums, King's Disease 1 and 2, both released within the past 2 years, have Nas releasing albums entirely produced by the much younger Hit Boy that might be like his best stuff in the past 10 years, maybe 15 or even 18 years. He finally won a Best Rap Album Grammy Award with King's Disease 1, and King's Disease 2 is arguably better than that. Nas hasn't lost a step and still appears like extremely inspired and thoughtful. Number 9, Black Midi with Cavalcade. Black Midi is a lot of things. They can be like loud and hardcore, they can be punky, they can be prog, progressive rock, or experimental, or jazzy. Cavalcade is pretty multi-dimensional, more so I'd argue than even Turnstile's Glow On. After 2019's Schlagenheim and now Cavalcade, Black Midi is now 2 for 2 in delivering very good albums. Their reputation is steadily growing. Number 8, Mac Homie with Pray for Haiti. I'm not on a Griselda burnout, I swear. But when I saw that this latest Mac Homie release was upon us, in my mind, I made up that I wouldn't like it as much as, like, say, Conway's From a King to a God from 2020, or Benny the Butcher's Plugs I've Met 1 or 2 from 2019 and 2021. The latest, by the way, could have also made this list. It just didn't. But I didn't want to even like this Mac Homie album as much as some of Griselda's best. Chalk it up to my own mental laziness there. But yo, Pray for Haiti might be as good as any or all of it. From cover to cover, I was enjoying track after track, half thinking that there would be some significant drop-off along the way, or a point where I've had enough and would just want to move on to something else. But that point didn't come. I mean, I'm placing this album higher than Nas and Baldy James. Come on. Number 7, Spelling with The Turning Wheel. This one is so different from what I've become accustomed to hearing from most of the soft indie pop, indie soul, dream soul. Is dream soul even a thing? But Spelling is tapping into like so many genres, into the theatrical, the dramatic, storytelling, time period shifts, regional shifts. Is Baroque, dream, soul, pop a thing? Number 6, Mogwai. As the Love Continues. One of my favorite instrumental heavy bands. I love their catalog. This is another great addition. And it's only their second, produced by production legend David Friedman, one of the greatest rock producers of the past 30 years. But yeah, just listen to the first 2 songs from Mogwai's As the Love Continues. And by the end of Here We Go Forever, track 2, you should be like, okay. I get it. I love me some Mogwai. Number 5, Amyl and the Sniffers, Comfort to Me. Easily the funnest punk rock listen of the year for me. Amy Taylor's presence on these songs are like so captivating and urgent. These songs are conceptually tight. It's not the run of the mill at all. I had done a video when this album was released about Comfort to Me, and I was talking about how much of a difference it makes when a punk band has a truly charismatic frontman, or in this case, frontwoman. And Amyl and the Sniffers, Comfort to Me, it's all that. Give that one a listen. Number 4, Jose Gonzalez with Local Valley. This, I thought, was one of the most melodic and pleasant sounding indie folk albums. He really didn't get the same across the board recognition as some of his peers in 2021, but this Local Valley album is so rich in melody that whether or not you understand all of his lyrics or what the songs necessarily mean, the songs and the guitar playing in them still pack an emotional punch. This is the Swedish singer-songwriter's 4th album and his first in the last 6 years. Very good album. Number 3, Joan As Policewoman with Tony Allen and Dave Akumu. The solution is Restless. Rock, jazz, pop artist Joan Wasser, aka Joan As Policewoman, collaborates with Tony Allen, Fela Kuti's legendary drummer, and Dave Akumu for one of 2021's absolute best. This is an extremely soulful and jazzy project, easy to listen to from beginning to end, extreme charisma coming from the frontwoman Joan Wasser, and excellent chemistry between her and the band, which includes, as I mentioned, Tony Allen and Dave Akumu. This is one of those albums that you could just pop on any given day and listen to in its entirety, as the whole thing just kind of connects seamlessly and feels like a live recording all the way through. I don't know, maybe if it wasn't in the genre that doesn't get as much exposure as others, it would have probably been ranked higher across the board in a lot of these publications and like Metacritic's critical best. Joan As Policewoman with Tony Allen and Dave Akumu, the solution is Restless. You won't be disappointed if you hear that one. Number 2, Sufjan Stevens and Angelo De Augustine, A Beginner's Mind. I love Sufjan Stevens' music. I love Seven Swans. I love Illinois. I love Carrie and Lowell. I like Greetings from Michigan, and I enjoyed his recent ambient projects. Now, this collaboration between him and his label signee, vocalist Angelo De Augustine, is just beautiful. It's pretty soft, tender sounding, melodic as all hell. I swear, Sufjan Stevens' songwriting is already pretty sublime and folky. Now, with Angelo De Augustine's vocals and vocal accentuation, it just makes for a blissful combination. This is part indie folk, part dream pop. Then you couple that with the themes of the song, which, by the way, each song was inspired by a movie. All of this just blended together into this beautiful musical and lyrical tapestry. Just give it a listen, especially if you haven't been exposed to the music of one of indie's best artists of the past 20 years, Sufjan Stevens. This is another very strong addition to his catalog, and it would be my number 1 if it wasn't for, drumroll, number 1, Little Simz, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. So I was a big fan of Little Simz's 2019 album, Gray Area. And, I thought that, when I saw how long this album runs, it's just over an hour. I thought that there would have been a lot of filler. I thought there's no way this could have lived up to the short and sweet condensed project that was Gray Area. And I'm like, okay, we'll see what we got here. But producer Inflow and her just have this chemistry going. And she is such a thoughtful songwriter. Like, she's not one of these like shock punchline type rappers. She's not going to wow you like that. But in the narrative that she drives and in the stories that she's telling, the personal introspection, the vulnerability, not to mention just like how awesome these songs were. The album got off to such a great start that I'm like, there's no way that this whole thing is going to keep pace with how great the Introvert introduction to this album is. And then when you look at the next songs, the song with Cleo Sol, very next song called Woman, which was a single, Little Q parts 1 and 2, I Love You, I Hate You, which a lot of people like. I didn't love it as much as some others. Speed was good. Standing Ovation was just amazing. So when we get to the midway point, I'm thinking, okay, this is obviously like a front-heavy first half of the album being better than the second half of the album type of album. But then when it got into the second half of the album, I'm like, oh my God, this second half of the album's better than the first half of the album. Especially when you get, okay, there's Protect My Energy, which is a very catchy, kind of bouncy, feely type of beat. I See You before that is really good, as is Rolling Stone right between I See You and Protect My Energy. But after that, you get to this 2-song combo of Point and Kill and Fear No Man, where it just sounds like some of Fela Kuti's best, like instrumentally, like it just transports you. And then with Obonjayar on Point and Kill, that's one of my favorite songs of the year, no question. But sometimes I might be Introvert, my album of the year. Like that, you know, I had to think heavily on where I place some of these other albums on this list. I didn't have to do too much thinking to come up with Sometimes I Might Be Introvert as my number one. But yeah, let me know what your albums of the year are. Let me know if you agree with any of these, disagree with any of these, if you heard some of them and didn't like it, or if you would recommend me listen to others that didn't make this list. Please let me know in the comments. Happy New Year. Please let me know what you thought of 2021 musically in the comments. What are some of your favorites? Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you love music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.